Aaron adjusted the strap of his small travel bag as the transport ship drifted away, leaving him alone at the base of the tower. The air was quiet, too quiet for a place that had once been filled with alien activity long before humans discovered it. Before him stood the structure he had read about for months, a towering spiral staircase that twisted upward into the clouds, built inside a smooth stone column that no one had ever been able to fully explore. He had been chosen as the station's engineer, tasked with keeping the old research equipment alive and safe. It was not the kind of assignment many people wanted. The tower was far from any city or colony, and most researchers considered it haunted. Yet Aaron liked silence. He liked puzzles. And something about the endless staircase had pulled him here. As he stepped inside, his boots echoed against the polished stone floor. The air smelled faintly of dust and iron. Strange lines ran along the walls, faintly glowing like old paint that refused to fade. Aaron stopped for a moment and touched one of the marks. It felt warm, almost alive. "Careful with those," a voice called out from higher up the stairs. Aaron looked up quickly. A woman was standing a few steps above, holding a lamp that gave off a pale golden light. Her face was calm but curious, and she looked nothing like the silent ruins around her. "I didn't know anyone else was here," Aaron said, his voice echoing softly in the chamber. The woman smiled a little. "I could say the same. I'm Myra. Historian, Language Department. And you must be the new engineer." Aaron nodded. "Yes. Aaron. They told me I'd be working alone." Myra descended the steps, her lamp lighting the spiral as she moved closer. The glow touched the strange markings on the wall, making them seem to shift like water. "I've been here for 2 weeks already. They probably didn't bother updating the records. That happens often with remote places like this." Aaron felt a quiet relief. He had prepared himself for long months without company, but now, seeing another human face, he realized how heavy that loneliness might have been. "Good to know I'm not the only one climbing stairs for months," he said, a small smile breaking through his serious tone. Myra chuckled softly. "Yes, though I'm still not sure if that's a comfort or a curse." Together they walked back toward the base of the tower, where small equipment crates had been left for Aaron. Myra helped him drag them into the side room that served as the station's living quarters. The place was simple: 2 beds, a table, shelves filled with translation notes, and a small cooking unit. It looked more like a cabin than a laboratory. "So," Aaron said as he opened a crate, "what's it like, working inside this place?" Myra placed her lamp on the table and folded her arms. "Strange. The staircase feels alive. Sometimes I think I hear footsteps behind me, but no one is there. And the markings, they seem to change when I study them too closely. It's as if they don't want to be read." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Changing walls? Echoing steps? Sounds like a dream job." Her laughter was light but brief. "You joke, but it can feel unsettling. Still, I think there's meaning in these symbols. Something left behind for us, or maybe for someone like us to find." Aaron glanced at the staircase. The spirals reached higher than his eyes could follow. Shadows stretched along the walls as if they had shapes of their own. He shook the thought away and busied himself setting up the generator. That night, after unpacking, Aaron found himself on the first steps of the spiral, staring upward. The quiet pressed on him from every side. Then he heard it faint, almost hidden. Footsteps, light and steady, climbing above him. He froze. "Myra," he called. Her voice came from the room below. Yes. Aaron frowned. The sound above him stopped. Slowly, he stepped down and returned to the quarters. Myra looked up from her notebook. "Everything all right?" she asked. Aaron nodded, though his mind was unsettled. "Just getting used to the place." As he sat across from her, the light from the lamp flickered, shadows sliding along the curved wall. For a moment, they looked like figures climbing the staircase, silent and endless. He told himself it was only his imagination. Yet deep inside, he felt that his first step into the spiral had awakened something waiting in the shadows. And whatever it was, he and Myra would face it together whether they wanted to or not. The following morning began with silence. Aaron woke early, adjusting to the dim light that entered the narrow windows of the tower. The walls seemed to hum faintly, like a heartbeat deep inside the stone. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, realizing that Myra was already awake. She sat at the table, surrounded by papers filled with notes and sketches of the markings. "You work even before breakfast?" Aaron asked, his voice still rough with sleep. Myra looked up, smiling faintly. "These symbols don't wait for anyone. Sometimes I think they shift overnight, as if they change while I'm not looking. If I don't write fast, I might lose something important." Aaron stood and stretched. "Or maybe you're just seeing things after staring too long at stone walls." She raised her eyebrow at him, clearly amused. "Skeptic." He grinned. "Engineer." It was the beginning of their rhythm. Myra chased secrets written on the walls, while Aaron kept the machines running and the power steady. Yet, slowly, their tasks began to overlap. She often asked for his help to climb higher along the spiral, and he sometimes stayed near her when she studied, curious despite himself. By the third day, something strange happened. They were climbing together, Myra holding her lamp close to the walls while Aaron carried extra tools. The spiral was wide enough for them to walk side by side, but the shadows always seemed to stretch taller, bending in ways that felt unnatural. "Do you hear that?" Myra whispered suddenly. Aaron stopped, listening. At first, only silence. Then soft echoes of footsteps above them. Slow, steady, and impossibly distant, though the sound was clear. Aaron tightened his grip on the rail. "Someone else is here." Myra shook her head. "No ship has arrived since yours. I checked the schedule. We're alone." The footsteps continued, always just out of reach, as if someone was climbing ahead of them. Aaron, determined, quickened his pace, but no matter how far he went, he saw nothing but empty steps and shadows. Finally, the sound faded, leaving only the beat of their own hearts. "That's what I meant," Myra said softly. "I hear it often. It follows me. Sometimes behind me, sometimes above." Aaron looked at her carefully. "And you're not afraid?" Her lips curved into a small, nervous smile. "Of course I'm afraid. But I can't leave. This staircase holds answers. And I think, maybe the footsteps are part of those answers." Aaron wanted to argue, but her determination reminded him of why he had come here in the first place, to understand the unknown, not to run from it. That evening, they sat together in the quarters, their meal simple but warm. Aaron noticed the way Myra kept her notebook close, as if the pages carried more value than any treasure. "Why history?" Aaron asked suddenly. "Why spend your life chasing the past when the future is waiting outside?" Myra leaned back, thoughtful. "Because the past shapes the future. These symbols, this tower, they're not just stones. They're memories. If humans are to survive in this universe, we need to remember that we're not the first to build, to dream, or to fall. Studying them makes me feel connected. Aaron nodded slowly. And you think humans matter to this place? Her gaze sharpened. Yes. Haven't you noticed? The symbols respond to you. When you touched them on the first day, they glowed brighter. When I touch them, they remain faint. This tower reacts to humans, not machines, not scanners. Us. Aaron felt a shiver, though he tried to mask it with a shrug. Maybe I'm just special. Or maybe all humans are, Myra said softly, as though she was speaking a truth she had only just realized. The room fell quiet. The lamp's glow flickered, and the shadows bent across the walls again, tall and watchful. For a moment, Aaron thought he saw figures on the staircase reflected in the light, moving slowly upward. Later, as he lay on his bed, unable to sleep, the echoes returned. Footsteps, faint but steady, rising in rhythm with his breath. He sat up, listening. Myra, he called. She stirred slightly but did not wake. The sound was clearer now, climbing endlessly above them. Aaron stood, walked to the doorway, and looked at the spiral staircase bathed in darkness. The shadows seemed deeper than before, as if the tower itself was listening. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" The footsteps paused. For the first time, Aaron felt the weight of being human in a place not built for humans. And yet, somehow, he also felt that it was waiting for him and for Myra. The following days passed in a strange rhythm. By morning, Myra filled pages with her sketches and translations. By afternoon, Aaron checked the generators, repaired the water pumps, and tested the comms. By evening, they often climbed the staircase together, carrying a lamp and a sense of unease. The echoes returned almost every time, the sound of unseen steps pacing either ahead or behind. Aaron began to joke about it lightly, though his jokes were thin shields. "At least whoever it is has good stamina," he said once. Myra gave him a look. "You laugh because you're afraid." He smiled faintly. "And you don't laugh because you're braver." She shook her head. "I don't laugh because I want answers." It was on the seventh day that something unusual happened. Myra had been studying a section of the wall on the 12th spiral, her lamp close to the carved lines. Aaron leaned against the rail, watching the endless curve of steps vanish into the dark above. Suddenly Myra gasped. "Aaron! Look!" He rushed over, and his breath caught. The carvings were glowing faintly, but only near Myra's hand. She stepped aside, letting Aaron touch the wall. As soon as his fingers brushed the stone, the symbols brightened, shifting into new shapes as if rearranging themselves. "Did you see that?" Myra whispered, excitement flashing in her eyes. Aaron nodded slowly, his heart racing. They moved, like they were waiting. Myra quickly scribbled the shapes into her notebook. "This is not random. It's a sequence. Maybe a message." The thought unsettled Aaron. Why would alien walls write to humans? Myra's voice softened. "Because maybe they left this place for us. Or maybe only humans can open it." The idea hung between them like a flame in the dark. For hours, they worked side by side, Myra tracing the changing script while Aaron touched different points to trigger new patterns. Slowly, a rhythm appeared, certain symbols repeated, forming something like a language. At one point, Myra leaned close to compare her notes with the glowing wall. Her shoulder brushed against Aaron's arm. Neither moved away. The silence between them was not empty but full of unspoken things. When they finally stopped for the night, both were exhausted, but Myra's eyes shone. "Do you see? This is proof. Humans are not just observers here, we are participants. This tower responds to us." Aaron placed his tools aside, staring at the staircase stretching above. "And what happens when we reach the top?" Myra's smile was small but determined. "Then we'll know why it was waiting." That night, Aaron dreamed of the staircase. He was climbing endlessly, shadows pressing close on every side. When he reached out, instead of stone, he touched symbols glowing like fire beneath his hand. The symbols formed shapes of people, humans standing tall where shadows should have been. He woke with a start, sweat damp on his forehead. Across the room, Myra was still awake, her lamp glowing beside her notebook. "You should sleep," he murmured. She looked up, her hair falling across her face. "I couldn't. The patterns are too close to forming words. I almost understand them." Aaron sat on the edge of his bed. "You'll drive yourself sick if you don't rest." "And you'll keep worrying even if I do," she replied, her tone gentle. He chuckled softly. She wasn't wrong. The next afternoon, they climbed higher, reaching the 15th spiral. Here, the walls were smoother, and the markings more complex. Myra paused, tracing a section with her fingers, then frowned. "These lines, they look different." Aaron leaned in. The symbols here curved into shapes that almost resembled stair steps themselves, winding upward in a mirrored spiral. When Aaron touched one, the entire wall flickered with light, revealing a hidden pattern stretching far above. Myra's breath caught. "It's a map. A guide to the staircase." Aaron stared at her. "A guide? For who?" "For us," she said simply. The glow faded, leaving them in silence once again. But the discovery bound them closer, as though the tower itself had acknowledged their teamwork. As they descended, the echoes returned, footsteps above, steady and slow. This time, neither spoke. They simply walked together, their shoulders brushing, their shadows overlapping against the wall. When they reached the base, Aaron finally broke the silence. "Whatever's waiting at the top, it wants us to climb together." Myra nodded, her expression soft. "And we will." For the first time since arriving, Aaron felt that the tower's shadows were not only threats. They were tests. And he, a simple engineer, was beginning to believe that humans, fragile, stubborn, hopeful humans, were chosen to pass them. The staircase had become a part of their lives. Each day, Aaron and Myra climbed higher, carrying lamps, notebooks, and small rations of food. The tower seemed endless, but the hidden script gave them strength to continue. Every time Aaron touched the walls, new patterns appeared, and Myra worked tirelessly to record them. But the higher they went, the stranger the air became. The silence was heavier, the shadows darker, and the echoes sharper. It was as if the tower was testing their courage with every step. On the 22nd spiral, the accident happened. Aaron was ahead, carrying a small tool case, while Myra followed close behind with her lamp. The steps here were narrower, worn down by time. He placed his foot on a section that looked solid, but the stone cracked suddenly. His balance slipped, and the tool case slid from his hands, crashing against the wall. "Aaron!" Myra shouted, her voice echoing up the staircase. For a terrifying moment, Aaron's body tilted toward the open space beyond the railing. His hands scraped against the cold stone, desperate for support. The abyss below seemed endless, ready to swallow him whole. Then Myra dropped her lamp and lunged forward. Her hands grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Hold on," she cried, pulling with all her weight. Aaron gritted his teeth, forcing his other hand to grip the railing. Together, they managed to steady him back onto the step. His knees shook, and his breath came heavy. Myra did not let go until she was sure he was safe. When he finally looked at her, her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "You could have fallen," she whispered. Her hands still clung to his arm, trembling. "But I didn't," Aaron said softly, trying to calm her. "Because of you." For a long moment, neither spoke. The shadows around them seemed to pause, as if even the tower was waiting. Myra's grip loosened slowly, but she didn't step away. Aaron gave a small smile. "You've got a strong grip for a historian." Myra's lips curved into a shaky smile. "And you're too careless for an engineer." The tension broke, but only slightly. Their closeness lingered, heavy with emotions neither had spoken before. They sat down on the step to catch their breath. Myra's lamp still lay on the floor, its light flickering across the carvings on the wall. The glow made her face look softer, her eyes bright with something Aaron had never seen in them before. After a while, Myra spoke quietly. "You know, sometimes I wonder why I came here." It wasn't just about the symbols. It was about, not wanting to be forgotten. Out there, in the cities, people rush, build, and forget so quickly. I wanted to find something that lasts. Aaron listened, his heart steadying. "And you think this tower will remember you?" Her gaze met his. "Maybe. Or maybe you will." The words settled between them, fragile and powerful at the same time. Aaron wasn't sure what to say. He had always thought of himself as practical, a man of tools and machines, not of feelings. But now, sitting beside her on the ancient staircase, he realized he did not want to imagine climbing alone. He reached for the fallen lamp, setting it upright. "I'll remember," he said simply. Myra smiled again, but this time it was not shaky. It was real, full of quiet warmth. They continued climbing after resting, but something had changed. Myra walked closer to him now, as if afraid he might slip again. Aaron noticed how often her hand brushed against the railing near his, almost protective. He did not mind. In fact, the thought gave him comfort. That evening, back in the quarters, Myra prepared tea while Aaron repaired his tool case. The air between them felt different, lighter, yet charged with something unspoken. Finally, Myra broke the silence. "Aaron, thank you for not letting go today." He looked up at her, puzzled. "You were the one who saved me." "Yes," she said softly, "but you didn't let go either." For the first time, Aaron understood the meaning in her words. It was not just about the staircase or the danger. It was about trust. About holding on, even when the steps cracked beneath them. That night, when they sat side by side, Myra's shoulder leaned against his. Neither moved away. They did not need to speak. The silence was no longer empty, it was full of promise. And though the shadows still stirred along the staircase walls, they seemed less frightening now. Because Aaron knew that if he stumbled again, Myra would be there. And if she stumbled, he would never let go. The days after the accident passed differently. Aaron and Myra no longer felt like two strangers sharing a mission. Their steps matched naturally, their conversations came easier, and even their silences carried meaning. When Aaron worked on repairs, Myra often sat nearby, sketching symbols but glancing at him now and then. When Myra climbed higher for research, Aaron always stayed close, one hand ready to steady her. Yet the tower did not stay silent. One evening, while studying the wall on the 28th spiral, Myra froze. "Aaron," she whispered. He turned quickly. Her lamp had cast a long shadow against the wall, except the shadow was not hers. It was taller, thinner, shaped like a figure standing a step behind her. Aaron stepped forward, placing himself between Myra and the wall. But when he raised the lamp higher, the shadow dissolved into the ordinary curves of stone. His jaw tightened. "I saw it." Myra nodded slowly. "So did I." From that night on, the shadows became bolder. Sometimes they flickered just at the corner of vision, sometimes they stretched across the staircase like figures climbing alongside them. They never made a sound, yet their presence was heavy, as if unseen eyes followed every step. Aaron grew restless. He checked the lamps, the equipment, even the stone itself, trying to find an explanation. But Myra was calmer, her curiosity outweighing her fear. "They're not random," she said as they sat one night by the table. "The shadows appear near new patterns. It's like they're guarding the knowledge, testing us." Aaron frowned. "Or warning us to stop." Myra shook her head. "No. If they wanted to stop us, they could. Instead, they only watch." Her certainty both comforted and troubled him. Aaron was used to fixing things he could see and touch. But how could he protect them from shadows? One afternoon, they climbed to the 31st spiral. The air felt colder here, and the walls almost pulsed with faint light. Myra leaned close to trace the script, and as she did, Aaron noticed shadows gather behind her again. Without thinking, he stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. She looked at him, surprised but calm. "You feel it too?" "Yes," Aaron admitted. "But if they're testing us, they'll see that we're not afraid." Myra's eyes softened. "Not afraid, because we're together." The words sank deep, more powerful than any symbol. Aaron did not reply, but he didn't need to. His silence was an answer of its own. That evening, the shadows revealed more. While Myra compared her notes, Aaron noticed the dark shapes move along the walls, gathering into outlines that looked like people. Dozens of tall figures stood in silence, their faces hidden, their bodies only half formed from light and dark. Aaron's instinct was to shield Myra, but she touched his arm lightly. "Wait. Look closer." He did. And then he saw it, the figures weren't just standing. They were pointing upward, toward the higher spirals. "A guide," Myra whispered. "They want us to continue." Aaron narrowed his eyes. "Or they're leading us into a trap." But even as he said it, the figures faded back into the walls, leaving only silence. Myra lowered her notebook slowly. "I don't think they're enemies. I think they're the memory of the builders. Maybe, they've been waiting for someone to climb." Aaron didn't argue this time. The memory of her saving his life still burned in his chest. He had promised himself not to let go. And if following the shadows was what it took to protect her, then he would climb every step. That night, as they rested, Myra's voice broke the silence. "Aaron, do you ever wonder why the tower responds to you more than me?" He turned his head toward her. "Because I'm lucky." She shook her head with a small smile. "No. Because maybe this place was built to test not just knowledge, but trust. And you carry that trust, even when you pretend to be hard." Aaron chuckled softly. "You think I'm hard?" "I think you're kind," Myra said simply. The words left him quiet. He had fixed machines, built structures, solved problems. But to be seen as kind, that was something he hadn't expected. As he lay back, listening to the faint hum of the tower, Aaron realized the truth: the shadows were not the only watchers here. He was watching Myra, to every gesture, every determined look, every quiet smile. And slowly, without him even noticing, she had become the reason he climbed. The climb grew harder as Aaron and Myra reached the higher spirals. The steps were narrower now, some cracked and fragile. The air felt colder, and the silence was heavier, like a blanket pressing against their ears. Their lamps cast long shadows that moved strangely, bending as though they had their own will. On the 39th spiral, Myra paused. "Look at the walls," she whispered. The carvings here were different. Instead of single lines and symbols, entire sections glowed faintly, forming what looked like tall doors outlined in light. When Aaron touched one, the glow spread like ripples across the stone. "It's reacting faster," he said. Myra nodded. "It knows we're close." The idea that the tower knew them sent a shiver down Aaron's spine. But he didn't let go of her hand. They climbed together, step after step, their shadows stretching along the walls. At last, they reached the top spiral. A massive chamber opened before them, higher and wider than anything they had seen below. The ceiling arched far above, covered with glowing patterns that moved like stars in motion. The walls pulsed with living light, and the staircase ended in a smooth platform at the center of the room. But they weren't alone. The shadows gathered in silence, filling the chamber. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of tall figures shaped from light and darkness stood around the walls, their faces hidden, their forms shifting. They did not speak, but their presence was overwhelming. Myra's hand tightened on Aaron's. "They've been waiting." Aaron scanned the chamber, his muscles tense. "For what?" The figures moved as one, pointing toward the center of the platform. The glowing symbols shifted, arranging themselves into a circle of light. Myra's breath caught. "It's a trial. They want us to step inside." Aaron frowned. "A trial of what?" Her eyes lifted to his, calm yet determined. "Not of strength. Of us." Together, they stepped forward into the circle. At once, the shadows closed in, surrounding them. The chamber grew darker, the light dimming until only the circle remained. The air pulsed with energy, and a deep hum filled their ears. Suddenly, the walls changed. Aaron saw vision scenes of humans struggling in distant places, colonists fighting storms, families building homes, children learning under harsh skies. All fragile, all imperfect, yet all refusing to give up. Beside him, Myra gasped as she saw other images: civilizations long gone, alien cities reduced to dust, great towers crumbling into silence. The shadows seemed to whisper without words, "Why should humans survive where others failed? Why should you be chosen?" Aaron felt his chest tighten. He was just an engineer. What answer could he give? But then Myra's hand squeezed his, grounding him. He lifted his head. "Because we don't give up. We hold on. Even when the steps break, even when the shadows rise. We keep climbing." Myra's voice joined his, steady and clear. "And because we remember. We carry love, trust, and hope with us. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us human." The chamber shook as if the tower itself had heard their words. The shadows pressed closer, taller and darker, but instead of shrinking, Myra stepped forward, pulling Aaron with her. They faced the darkness together, their hands joined. A sudden burst of light filled the circle, pushing the shadows back. The figures froze, then slowly bent their heads as if in recognition. The walls flared brighter, revealing countless lines of script that rose upward like fireflies in the night. Myra's eyes widened. Its opening, the archive. At the far end of the chamber, a massive doorway appeared, glowing with symbols. Behind it lay endless shelves of light, floating shapes of knowledge preserved from the vanished builders. The tower had revealed its heart, but only because Aaron and Myra had proven themselves. The shadows slowly faded into the walls, their test complete. The hum in the air softened into silence. Aaron stared at the glowing archive, then turned to Myra. "We did it?" She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "No. You did it. You carried us through when I was afraid." Aaron shook his head. "No, Myra. We did it together. That's the only reason the tower opened." Their words lingered in the glowing chamber. For the first time, Aaron felt not like a visitor in the tower but like someone truly recognized. Humanity was not weak here. Humanity had been chosen. And as Myra's hand remained in his, warm and steady, he realized the truth. The greatest secret they had uncovered was not only the archive but also the bond they had built on every step of the spiral. The glow from the archive lit the chamber like a gentle sunrise. Aaron and Myra stood hand in hand, staring at the floating symbols and shapes that hovered like memories of an ancient civilization. They had reached the top, survived the trial, and discovered the secrets hidden for centuries. Yet neither felt the need to speak immediately. Words seemed too small for the weight of what they had seen and shared. Myra's eyes wandered over the walls, tracing patterns of light. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "All of this, preserved for humans to find." Aaron nodded. "Not just for us. For anyone who climbs and believes in what we carry." She turned to him, a soft smile on her face. "Do you think the builders ever imagined humans would reach here?" He shrugged, though his lips curved in a small grin. "Maybe. Or maybe they knew we would, eventually. And they left it for anyone who could hold on to hope, trust, and love." Myra's hand tightened around his. "We held on together." They spent some time recording what they could, making sketches and notes to bring back to the world below. But soon, the reality of the tower's endless spiral reminded them that their journey was not over. They had to descend. The walk down was quieter than the climb. Shadows still moved along the walls, but they no longer felt threatening. Instead, they seemed like guardians, watching them safely to the base. Every step felt lighter, and every breath carried a sense of accomplishment. At one point, Aaron glanced at Myra. "I never thought climbing stairs could feel like this," he said, smiling. Myra laughed softly. "It's not the stairs, Aaron. It's who you climb with." Their shoulders brushed naturally, and Aaron realized he could not imagine descending without her beside him. Their shared experiences, the dangers they faced, the quiet conversations, and the near accidents, it all had built a bond stronger than any stone the tower held. As they reached the lower spirals, the light from their lamps danced on the walls, and the carvings glowed faintly in response. Aaron stopped for a moment, tracing the lines with his fingers. Myra leaned close, her hair brushing his arm. "Do you think anyone else will understand what we saw?" he asked. Myra shook her head, smiling. "Some might. But it doesn't matter. The tower responded to us, because we climbed together. That's enough." They continued down, hand in hand, sharing small jokes and glances. Even the faint echoes of footsteps above seemed to cheer them on, no longer eerie but reassuring. By the time they reached the base, the sun was beginning to rise over the horizon. Its light spilled through the narrow windows, mixing with the glow of the carvings, creating a warm, golden scene. For the first time, the staircase did not feel endless. It felt complete, like a journey that had prepared them for the wider world beyond the tower. Aaron let out a deep breath. "We made it," he said softly. Myra squeezed his hand. "Yes. And we're not just surviving. We're remembering. We're human. And that matters." He looked at her, realizing how much she had changed his perspective. The tower had tested their courage, their intelligence, and their trust. But the greatest lesson had been clear all along: humanity's strength lay not in machines, power, or speed, but in their will to love, to protect, and to remember. Myra turned to him, eyes shining with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you, Aaron." He smiled warmly. "And I couldn't have done it without you, Myra." They walked out of the tower together, shadows and sunlight stretching around them. The staircase behind them seemed to glow faintly in farewell, the symbols reflecting everything they had endured and discovered. Outside, the wind carried the promise of new journeys. They looked at each other and laughed softly, sharing a quiet joy born of trials, trust, and love. The world beyond the tower was wide, full of challenges and wonders, but for the first time, neither felt alone. Hand in hand, Aaron and Myra stepped away from the base of the spiral staircase. Behind them, the shadows lingered not as threats, but as silent witnesses to the bond humanity could create. Together, they carried the knowledge of the tower, the proof of their strength, and the warmth of a connection that would guide them through whatever lay ahead. For the first time, the shadows felt like friends, the spiral like a path they had conquered, and the universe like a place where humans fragile, resilient, and loving could shine. And so, they walked forward, ready for the future, knowing that the light beyond the shadows was theirs to share.